Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessinho. If you've ever seen any of the shows that I've done with Tanner, one of his like quotes or lines that he loves to say is like the only thing constant in life is death, taxes, and something. And that's where I got the title of this from. And honestly, the only things that are constant in life are death, taxes, and individual errors from Arsenal players. So let's just get into it. Thank you to everybody who is showing up for this stream. We are celebrating International Women's Day. And with this game, honestly, it's just the only thing I can really think about is missed chances, the individual errors, and just more questions about this Arsenal side and Arteta. After this game, there were some very harsh words about Arteta, his team selection, his substitutions, the ruthlessness on the field, everything. And I think we're just back at square one, feeling like, what is this team really about? We beat Leicester and we're riding high on that. And then we come to the Burnley game and we tie it. And I did hear, and I love him, Harry Symeou was doing his show the other day and was saying that, well, how would you feel if you had tied against Leicester and beat Burnley? And that logic does kind of make you feel better for a second, but judging by the state, and the form of both of those teams, I don't really think we can take any comfort in that either, but we'll get into everything, the missed chances, the VAR decision, and moving forward, what does the season mean for Arsenal? But before we get started, I want to introduce my special guest. Let me bring her in. Hey, MK.
Hi. Hey, thanks again for having me.
No problem. You guys, in the comment section, everybody say hello to MK. She's awesome. When I saw her on the Highbury squad, we have so much in common. We love Arsenal. We both live in LA. We played, and we're the same age, but I'm not going to repeat what age we are because, we're not going to do all that today. But, it's awesome having her here. So if you're in the comment section, tell MK hello. And, MK, just tell me a little bit about, before we get started, just about Arsenal LA and, how did you get started, watching Arsenal, that kind of thing.
So I started watching Arsenal probably more consistently in 2006 just because of availability, but I had followed the team since roughly 1999 when Thierry Henry basically signed for the squad. So I discovered Arsenal through the French national team, since a lot of the players that played for Arsenal at the time were French nationals. And of course, Arsene Wenger was the coach at the time. So it was a very French influenced team. So that's kind of how I found my way to become an Arsenal supporter. And then of course, with the signing of Henry, that really sealed the deal. So, but of course, with television rights the way they were at the time, it was very difficult to watch. So probably 2005-ish, around then, when it was a little more widely available in New York. So, yeah.
It's crazy because everybody's story to kind of get to Arsenal, as an American, it's just so different, but I don't know. It's just, when I started watching, I felt like immediately like a super connection to the team and the community and everything. And for me, it was really about seeing Black players, playing, and they were awesome. That was really influential to me, especially as a young girl playing soccer and being pretty much the only Black girl on the team every single time, so yeah, I'm so glad that our paths have met, through Arsenal. Yes. And yeah. So let's see who's saying hello in the chat box. This is my mom, by the way. My mom.
Yes, yes, I remember she was in chat too in Highbury. Yes, yeah, very supportive.
Yeah,
I'd love to get my mom into football, but she's not a sports person. So
I get that.
So that's great that you have that with your mom, that she loves the Arsenal too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's we both love it, and to be honest, she's probably a bigger fan than me. Like, she is just yeah, it's insane. Yeah. Hi, Static. Hey, thank you for being here. And Steven, again, thank you guys for being here. So let's go ahead and jump in. I want to start off a little bit with the lineup. Every time the lineups come out about an hour before the game starts, it just kind of seems like Arsenal Twitter just kind of shuts down, and there's this, oh my gosh, so-and-so's not playing, so-and-so's playing. But to me, I didn't really think that this lineup was unexpected. I expected Willian, Aubameyang, and Saka to start. Personally, that's not who I would have chosen, but playing against Burnley, I don't really think that it should have been that big of a deal to play those players, because we should beat them no matter who we have out there, to be quite honest. Exactly. So for you, when you saw the lineup, did you want to see something different? Were you perfectly okay with it? What were your first thoughts when you saw the lineup come out?
So I'm actually one of those people that thinks, especially against a side like Burnley, not to dismiss them, like they are kind of in a somewhat relegation battle. So you do have to take those sides very seriously. Up and down the Premier League table, you're going to encounter a different level of competition than just about any other league in Europe. With that said, I'm really concerned with the fact that Saka is consistently starting when we obviously know that pretty much even before we drew this match, that the Europa League is essentially the most important path back to Europe or to stay in Europe. And so I think there is a genuine concern on my part and a lot of people's part to continue to see Saka every single game. And as much as he is a must-play player, but at the same time, you have to be mindful of what happened to Jack Wilshere. And I also would have preferred to have seen Martinelli on the wing instead of Willian. We haven't seen him for a while. I understand he rested Cedric because he's covering at both left and right back, but at the same time, I don't understand what it is with this manager and his favorites. I really think that there's a question mark there, and I don't think we're getting the full story about why he plays certain players and believes in certain players and others not, despite their talents. It just feels a little cliquey to me.
Yeah, I think, I do share your concerns about Saka. I don't think he's had the best couple of games. Like, his last couple of games were not great. He's such a good player that even when he's not playing well, he still contributes. But I think he looked leggy against Burnley. And we're going to need him for the rest of the season. So I completely understand that. And to be quite honest, I did expect Willian to start, because I don't want to be harsh on Arteta, but I think he was just waiting on Willian to show just a tiny bit of light, like just a little bit of life, to have an excuse to play him again. So, and the unfortunate part about that is that we do have another player that's been on form. We will talk about him a little bit in Nicola Pepe, who is now out of the squad again. And Willian had one decent game against Leicester, and he dropped another bomb, against Burnley. He wasn't great. He was just okay, just basic. I know that he had the assist. I don't think it counted as an assist for the Aubameyang goal, but he's just not, he needs to be a rotational player. He should not be starting. He's 32 years old. He hasn't really done anything yet. So I worry about Arteta's persistence with certain players, like you said, and I think he's almost shooting himself in the foot because of it. And we can also get into the Martinelli question a little bit later too, because people are starting to really worry about whether or not Arteta rates this kid, or if he's actually really just trying to save his legs or what. But in the 6th minute, Aubameyang scored a really nice goal. It was a nice through ball in between the lines from Thomas Partey to Willian. He drove towards the defense and passed it to Aubameyang, and Aubameyang does what he usually does. The one thing that I did like about what Aubameyang has done in the last couple games he did against Leeds too, instead of trying to curl the ball into the far corner, he's now trying to go to the inside post. And it's giving him a little bit more, it's making him less predictable. And I think that makes him a better striker, because before, people kind of knew he was going to do his step overs, go off to the right, and then try to curl the ball. Now he has some different options, whether he wants to go to the front post or the back post. What do you think has contributed to Aubameyang's, uptick in form? What do you think the catalyst of that has been? And my second part to this question is, what do you think that him playing center forward is going to do in terms of the hierarchy for center, like the center forwards, in terms of like Lacazette, Eddie, and Martinelli? You know, who's in, who's out?
So Aubameyang was being played on the wing, on the left wing, quite a bit, I think, or off to the side, and playing him in center forward, I literally think is honestly that alone is a big difference. Just switching that position slightly. I think Martinelli occupies a different space than Aubameyang to the same effect. He's more of a winger that cuts in, so his runs are different. His pass to goal is different. And I think that Lacazette, as much as I love him, I own his shirt, he's got to probably be sold, especially, I know we'll get to that, our finances. I think you have to, unfortunately, come to the realization that you're not going to be able to keep both of those players. You gave Aubameyang the contract, so you're going to have to probably part with Lacazette. So I think going forward, this is definitely the place to play Aubameyang, the center forward. He's got great movement and communication with the young players. He's just as creative a player with his feet as a lot of he depends on service, and he's getting that service from this young team. So I like what I see. I don't begrudge him his misses. He's there, he's getting into the space. That's what you want to see.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I just think that, there has been some rumors coming about that Lacazette is looking for a new place to be, because he's being offered a contract with a smaller wage package, from Arsenal. So I'm thinking, somebody did bring this up to me during my earlier stream, that it may just be a polite way of saying we want you to leave, offering him something that they know that he won't accept. It's best to part ways with Lacazette at this point. And I've said this a couple of times, that I just kind of think it was just, he was a good player, but it was bad squad building. You brought him in to be the replacement for Giroud. The complaint about Giroud is that he didn't score 20 plus goals a season. You brought in Lacazette. Although he got 20 plus goals for Lyon the season before we got him, 10 of those were from the penalty spot. He's never been that type of striker anyway. He's always been a second striker. So for you to bring him in under those type of pretenses, and then to bring in a world-class striker 6 months later, he was never going to survive that. So I almost feel bad for him in a way, but we do need to find a way to recoup a fee from this, because we can't afford to let him walk away for free.
Yeah, he was a record signing. And if you look at, he struggled to break into the French national team as well. And I know the French national team, obviously being World Cup winners, but we're talking about even when he was younger, and really should have made a presence in that team when they weren't getting as far in 2014, when, Mbappe was probably, like a U11. So it's like, France was very bad from like roughly, after Zidane left and eventually Henry retired, and it was difficult to watch. So the fact that he couldn't break into that squad should also, I think, say a lot. So
100%. And, France is iconic for world-class strikers, so, and that's not to say that Lacazette's not a good player. He just wasn't the right fit. So I do agree with you that, the hierarchy is changing. And I think that, we need to replace Lacazette moving forward, and move Martinelli up and sell Nketiah as well, just to create pathways for the players that we need to. We've given big contracts to a certain extent to Martinelli and Aubameyang. They should be our priorities. Eddie and Lacazette are running their deals down. So, it's just kind of time to move on,
It's just a shame about Balogun, because he's in the few appearances he's had, he's shown us that he's really probably capable of quite a high ceiling of development. And I don't know if it's his agent or what, but he's not being given the time to develop into, I think, what could be a much, much better player than Eddie, who's really a 90s style striker. He's sort of like, what do they call it? The fox in the box. And it's like this just outdated version of what a center forward is, and is not really compatible either with Arsenal's play or the modern state of the game. So yeah, I think you have to move Eddie along as well.
For sure. And I just want to bring this up really quick. Crow 1989, thank you so much for your comment. And what I mean by a second striker for Lacazette is what I mean is that he needs somebody else next to him to make it work. Whereas you can't make him into a focal point. Even when he played for Lyon, he wasn't a focal point. He had other players around him that he needed to bring into the play. And that's pretty much what he does for us too. But he's not an all and out goal scorer. He is more of like a facilitator type. He can be a part of buildup. That's the kind of player that he is. So when I say a second striker, what I mean is that he needs somebody up there with him to kind of make things tick. Whereas Aubameyang, he's the finishing touch on everything that we do. That's what I kind of meant by that. So if I didn't use the right terminology, I apologize, but that's what I meant. But yeah, so let's just get, the mistake out of the way or the error out of the way so we don't ever have to think about it again. But again, individual errors. I mean, we can go back all the way we can go to the Wolves game, the Aston Villa game, the Leicester game, and this game. 4 games that thank God in the Leicester game, we were able to recover, but we're dropping points because of our own mistakes, and it's becoming such an issue that people are trying to connect the dots between the individual errors and Arteta. But let's just look at this one in particular with Xhaka and Leno.
Yeah.
How did you
I'm one of
see
those
it?
people that connects it to Arteta, because it's the play out of the 6-yard box, and that's ultimately how the manager wants his team to play football. And some people on this team are not capable of playing that style of football. So Leno, for all of his ability between the posts, is not good with his feet. And honestly, I would have rather him just booted that. I think we all would have. But in the heat of the moment, it's difficult. You have more of a tunnel vision. It's hard to see, what the cameras are showing you on the pitch. It's just, you can't sit there in a pub or in your living room and expect the player who's, it's just not realistic. But to the same effect, how many times have we seen this play out of the back cost us dearly, and particularly with Xhaka? And it goes back to that wayward pass across the 6-yard box in Europe, and he had that long lobbed pass just before the half against Benfica, and you put the ball to your player when he's under pressure from an offensive player closing down. You have David Luiz wide open. But David Luiz, you don't feel comfortable probably passing to him either. Right. So it's a question. It's like, why are we playing this way? That's what it ultimately comes down to for me, is that yes, these individual errors are extremely costly, but at some point you have to kind of question whether your players are of the caliber and of the consistency to execute that vision. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think that's the thing is, like, when we look at it, it really does come from us playing out of the back. And I think we're trying to play a system that almost, if these players aren't 100% concentrating, they won't get it right, because it's not their natural disposition. I think that Arteta is putting he's tasking players with things that are outside of their, I don't want to say it's outside of their capabilities, but again, if they're not 100%, they're going to make mistakes. Leno, he was never really great with his feet, was he? But Arteta wants a goalkeeper that can play out of the back, kind of like Ederson. You have Xhaka, somebody who is not only really one-footed, but isn't agile. So he's not ideal to be the person running towards your goalkeeper, looking for the ball under pressure, and when he's completely concentrated and rested and keyed into the game, he's mostly fine. But I question whether or not he was mentally fatigued, Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Xhaka was being played a lot. He's another one of those players that's probably been overplayed a bit. And look, I'm not saying that the strategy of playing out of the 6-yard box is necessarily wrong, because yes, as one commenter pointed out, we absolutely have seen some great build-up play lead to goals. But the question is whether your squad selections of players like Xhaka, who have consistently made errors in this system, I think he's made more errors than just about any other Arsenal player that have led to goals. I don't like to make him the scapegoat, but I think he's definitely another example of one of those Wenger era players that is maybe not compatible with Arteta's long-term vision, and is probably someone that also needs to eventually be moved along, however highly every manager seems to rate him, because he seems to start in whomever takes over the Arsenal management job. So I don't know. It's a tough call.
Yeah,
because he has leadership, but at the same time, and he takes responsibility. I don't want to slag off the guy, but he's just not. He's not to the level we need him to be at.
I mean, I think that's very, very fair, and I have this relationship with Xhaka where it's kind of like, I don't think he's the right person for the long-term future of the team, the team that we're allegedly trying to build. But he's played really well in the last like 6-7 games, you know, so I don't want to say, oh, he's just crap, because this is how Xhaka is. He plays really well. And then he has a game like this where he makes such a big error. But I also question whether the errors would be such a big deal if we didn't miss chances off of the back of that.
They still would be, I think, because it's such a glaring error that even if you were to, yes, it would be, we wouldn't be talking about it quite as much if we had won the game, of course.
I mean, it's like the Leicester game, isn't it? We had the individual error, but we were able to make it up. And that's why I question, and I'll ask you, and I'll give it to the comment section as well. With all these individual errors that we're kind of seeing, but then on the other end of the field, we're seeing kind of like glaring missed chances. Pepe had one at the end of the game where he kicked the air, and then Saka also had one, about in the 21st minute where he really should have put it away. Should missed chances be punished as harshly or thought of as harshly as, as the individual errors?
No, I think that you want to have your players getting into those positions. And I think if you start criticizing players for taking chances or missing chances if you criticize them too much for that, it's going to make them gun shy. And I think you need to support them, congratulate them, and, put an arm around their shoulders for getting into those positions. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes, that's my cat. Sometimes it's like, the ball has a different kind of spin that you were expecting. I think in the case of one of those Pepe misses where it was just, there's a lot of spin on the cross. I think he was expecting that cross to go to Lacazette, if I'm being perfectly honest, because he was a few yards behind Lacazette quite a bit, and he had to kind of run into that space. And I think it was really a wayward cross that led to that missed chance than anything, because Lacazette was in the correct position. You're not expecting it, and I think that sometimes happens. As per Saka's miss, I mean, it was just struck a little bit, to the side. And again, that also happens. Should he have released it earlier before the defender could have closed down? Yeah, I mean, of course, but ultimately, I think the passing in tight spaces is good. The movement around the 6-yard box is good. It's not quite like that era of where you're just constantly passing, and it just doesn't feel like there's any like shot on goal. I like watching this team even when they miss. So as frustrating as it is, I do feel like the football is getting better up at that end of the pitch, no question, creatively, and so you're going to miss chances, unfortunately.
So do we have an issue, like thinking about Arteta, do we trust that if he gets different players that he'll play the different players, or is he so attached to, his Xhakas, his Bellerin's, his Williams that, because I'm almost getting to the point where I'm like, I know people are saying, well, he doesn't have other options, but I think that's kind of crap. He does have other options. He chooses to play these players and they keep shooting him in the foot. He doesn't have to play David Luiz. He didn't have to give David Luiz a new contract, did he? Xhaka doesn't have to play. You could play Ceballos, and I know Ceballos had his individual errors, but let's just keep it real. He doesn't do it all the time. Whereas Xhaka,
he's far less inconsistent.
Yeah, it's just, I have this weird feeling about Arteta, like, if you do get better players, are you going to play them? You guys in the comment section, let me know what you guys think about, how do you feel about Arteta and him choosing certain players? Do you think he has no choice but to choose David Luiz and Xhaka and Bellerin and these types of players? Or do you think that it's just, he just favors them, because I'm starting to see a pattern, and we're taking one step forward and 3 steps back because these players continuously make these mistakes, but we're being told that these are the only players that he can play, and what other choice does he have? You know, I don't know. Let's get into some of your comments here. Let's see, let me go up to this one. Crow 1989 says, Xhaka isn't good enough for our team. I actually like him, but his mistakes have been too costly. It's no coincidence that since the Premier League began, he has had the most mistakes leading to goals. Wow. Errol Wood says, I blame Leno. He is so slow playing the ball out. We should have kept Martinez. Don't even want to get into the Martinez thing right now. I do think Leno is culpable, but I have my own things about Leno and us putting him under pressure to be Ederson when he's not. Don Giovanni says, error comes from his limitations, one-footed, slow decision-making, inability to play under pressure. Even when he has good games, the limitations are still present. Just might not cost us on the day.
Yep, 100%
really
agree with that comment. Mm-hmm.
That is a very good comment, yes. Crow 1989 says, playing from the back can only be done with elite players precisely because of the risk involved. However, like Pep did with Man City when he first went there, I don't think Mikel will change it. I don't think so either. I think Mikel has set upon a way that he wants to play, and he's going to live or die by it. So I know that there are some fans that are like, well, this is not the style that really fits these players. We should be playing in a different way. But this season he decided he's going to abandon the back three, and he's going to try to play a possession-based style, a very structured style that only maybe 5 or 6 players can play at an elite level, you know, and that's just the risk that he's willing to take, you know, and I do think we're dropping points because of it, but it needs to work out for him. Static says, MK, that's true. Xhaka definitely has made more errors than any other Arsenal player since 2016 or 2017. Also, you are not abusing the player. Constructive criticism is what players do need.
Sure. But there's a line, right? I mean, that's why I say I don't want to slag the guy off, right? Because I do see that there is this tendency within our fan base, particularly aimed at Xhaka. Remember that instance before the pandemic when he booed the fans. I'm not saying what Xhaka did was acceptable. It was not, you know, but how does it feel to be playing for this club? On the one hand, to have these leadership qualities that has managers continue to select him, and also to have this abuse. I mean, what was done to him online and to his family and to his wife by people who wear this crest. I'm ashamed at that. And that's all I'm saying when I say, like, I don't want to slag off the guy, because I'm well aware of the social media history. And I have to believe that these players do read this wherever they see it. And that can't be good for someone's mental headspace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really don't believe in going on social media and abusing these guys. Like, they are human, you know. Some of the things that have been said to Willian and Eddie have been absolutely disgusting. And you're not a fan of this club if you do those types of things, and you should probably just not use social media if you can't, like, rein your emotions in, because it's disgusting. Yo-Yo. Thank you, Yo-Yo, for being here. Like, you're one of the best, like, commenters ever. Like, you're always here, like, giving the tea. So Yo-Yo says he's a novice. It makes sense that he'll rely on elders. Better players is opinion-based. Willian shouldn't have taken so many minutes away from Pepe, Nelson, and Martinelli. He does rely on the senior players a lot. And again, I think those are the same players that you can kind of put them in the senior category and also the error-prone category. So it's a risk that he's willing to take. And again, it has to work out for him because it's his job on the line. Don Giovanni says he actively chose to keep these players. It's his worst flaw, in my opinion. He rejected offers for most of them. He and Edu don't understand long-term squad building. For sure.
I don't know if I would agree that they don't understand long-term squad building. I just think that they're inflexible to changing when things aren't working. And that's really the problem, right? I mean, to be a successful football manager or football director, you have to be able to adapt. And I don't feel that we see that with Arteta, who is very reliant upon this particular vision of football, playing out the back and possession-based football that worked for Pep Guardiola at Man City, but you don't have the budget or the ability to do that with these players at Arsenal. And so the problem, I think, is more so that there's a certain sort of stubbornness. And as per Edu, I mean, he has found us some good players. It's just that, like Martinelli is an Edu fine. So it's like, well, why doesn't Arteta play him? So I don't want to be too harsh on Edu, but I mean, he also did give us Willian. So
yeah,
I don't know. Is there some like something going on there with these players from his homeland? But
I think it goes back to just, we have to see how this shakes out. It's been 2 strange windows. The summer window I don't think they had as much rope as they probably would have liked to. They didn't have a lot of flexibility because the funds were really limited. Players on high wages, unable to shift them on. And then in the winter window, it was all about setting the stage for what's to come. Thomas Partey and Gabriel are great signings. Willian is not. Some are going to work out and some are not. I don't think anybody could have imagined how bad Willian would be.
No.
So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, give me 1 second. You guys, my phone. Gosh, every single time. It's so embarrassing. So, but yeah, you would have never imagined. So I think it just kind of comes down to, let's see what happens in the summer. This is a do or die window, no matter where we finish. There's no excuse because the club is going to expect us to move up the table. So I don't know. And I do have questions about whether or not Edu and Arteta are on the same page, but that is a conversation for another day. But let's just kind of round back to the game. I do want to talk a little bit about the VAR decision. VAR is becoming such a big talking point. It's been one for the entire season. And quite frankly, I think with VAR and the mistakes that are being made by the referees and the people running VAR, in conjunction with not having fans, has really diminished the product of the Premier League. It's not as good to watch. You're just waiting for the next mistake to come. The referees are deferring to VAR. They're not even making decisions anymore. And I don't understand for the life of me how that was not given as a handball. In one game, VAR is used perfectly with the shot from Pepe that hit off of the guy's shoulder. That's the perfect way that VAR is supposed to work. But how do they justify saying that wasn't a handball? How did you see it?
I see it not as a problem with VAR. I see it as a problem with English refereeing. Because, VAR exists in Europe. It existed in the World Cup. It actually started in tournaments before it was adopted in European leagues. The problem is English officiating, and it has been for many, many, many years. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist when I note that how many of the officials are from up north and probably have a bias towards London clubs. You could say that, but there's no evidence for that. But what there is evidence of is the fact that English officials are just not good enough. They're not good enough. And the reality is, you look at international tournaments that have officials from other European leagues, but not the FA. That says that they're not good enough to officiate major tournaments because their decisions are inconsistent. And I personally, and I've said this jokingly on the Highbury Squad, but I'm actually 100% serious. I think there needs to be an inquest into corruption within the FA as it relates to officials, because these decisions are so appalling that not only are they inconsistent, they do paint a picture of bias, in my opinion. And I think that you absolutely have to look into it because it's costing, there is actual economic injury here when these decisions add up to essentially cost you from being able to participate at a high level. And again, not a conspiracy theorist, but I think you have to look into the organization, and there should be a parliamentary inquest into the way it's run, into the way their union validates these results. It's corrupt. It's crap. And the managers have been complaining about it for years, particularly ones that come from other parts of Europe. Arsene Wenger was notoriously critical of the English FAs. They're horrible. So that's what I think it is. I mean, VAR isn't the issue. It's the jerk on the other side of it.
Yeah, for sure.
That doesn't think this is a handball. Come on.
I mean, real life, it was a joke. Like, I was like, yes, we got a penalty. And then as soon as they started looking at it, I was like, they're about to take this away. Like, it's just a joke. But I mean, basically for me, what it comes down to is VAR is a good tool. It's just an instant replay, gives you an opportunity to look at something again, because in real time, sometimes it's hard to see what happens and what doesn't. And it wasn't implemented correctly, meaning they weren't trained on it properly. And because the people that are running it are so inept, it's becoming a battle of the referees on the field versus the referees in the box away from the field making the decisions. You can see that the referees do not like VAR, to the point where they're just deferring to VAR and saying, you make the decision.
Well, I think
It'll
it's a
go
bit
to
of
VAR
cover.
anyway.
I think there's also a bit of cover too for the ref on the pitch, so they're maybe less, but at the same time, you know, you see these tweets like Liverpool and stuff, and you know the United that just, you know, they tend to get all of these, because look at, I'm not even saying that this is like, I think you need to have more referees from outside of Europe, because look at the amount of officials that come from Greater Manchester. And you're going to tell me that these people are going to be fair to Arsenal when all of these people are from you can't, at some point you are human and are beholden to your biases. Like, you don't go and become a football referee not being interested in some team that made you want to do that as a career. So I say bring in more officials from outside of Europe, unless the FA wants to get its act together and investigate bias and investigate consistency of decision making. I think that might help. Bring more officials from France, from Italy, from Germany, from the Turkish league, wherever. Bring them in. I know the Boris people probably won't like that, you know, so they don't want Europeans coming, but that's okay. That's what has to happen.
I love it. I love it. If you guys are loving what MK is saying, I know I am. We're, you know, we still have some more things to cover. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. I also have some announcements in a couple minutes that I'm going to get to, but yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. And you know, I was on another stream on the Football Terrace, and it's a you know, a channel that has like different teams represented in there, and I'm representing Arsenal, and they call us the tinfoil hats, you know, the conspiracy theorists that think that everything goes against us. And I'm like, you know, I think to a certain extent we can make excuses for just poor play and blame it on the referees, but there's a disproportionate amount of calls that go against us, and for a team that desperately needs to go up the table, I don't care how bad we're playing. If we deserve to get a penalty, we deserve to get a penalty, and that cost us two points regardless. I mean, if you play like crap, it doesn't matter. It's not like, well, if you're playing good, you should get the chances. No, even if we played like crap the entire game and we didn't do anything but just shit on ourselves, I want my penalty. I want my penalty kick, you know, so I don't really get it. You know, it doesn't make sense, but I definitely think there needs to be more done to the referees. I need to see fines. I need to see investigations. And like they said about how coaches and players have to come out after the game and explain things, I think referees should have to as well. They should come out and explain why somebody can literally stick their hand out and hit the ball down like as if they're playing basketball, and they literally get no penalty called against them. But yeah. Wow.
Totally. There's just no accountability, and that's the problem. It just stinks like corruption. I don't think it's a tinfoil hat conspiracy. Even the corruption that we have seen in world football the past 10 years alone, to say, hey, maybe all of these clowns from Manchester might not like exactly, where was that comment from? Yes, what Clive said about Arsenal being looked as a posh foreigners club, you know, owned by an American, the most expensive tickets. And so Manchester United is the biggest brand, the sports brand in the world, the single biggest sports brand in the world. You're going to tell me that they are not an international club full of rich snobs? I could promise you that there are probably a lot more United fans around the world, and that they don't have that same accusation leveled against them because they're from a blue collar part of England. So because you're from London, you're the Chelsea, okay, literally owned by a Russian gangster, and you're going to tell me literally Chelsea is the most gentrified foreign part of London. You're going to tell me that that's not okay. You know, it's just ridiculous. People just love to hate Arsenal. They're just haters. Anyways,
there you go. They're just haters. So let's just kind of round it off. I mean, the game, it ended 1-1, and ultimately, after games. There's not a lot to talk about in the game after you get through the goals and all that kind of stuff. But we usually try to go through and discuss what this means moving forward for this team. I think this particular result set us back quite a bit in my mind. It may not have in terms of the league table, but in terms of how I envision the remainder of the season has completely changed, because we have solidified mid-table with that particular result. Looking at our next couple of fixtures, a North London derby, I know we have to play Everton and West Ham and pretty much teams that are above us. I don't really fancy us in those games. But what I'm seeing something really interesting on Twitter that's people are starting to say that because of our really bad league position, if Arteta doesn't win the Europa League, he should be sacked. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that kind of coming about?
So I have recently, probably in the past month, become a lot more critical of Arteta, as I feel like he is sort of one note in his management style. And I do think you have to sack him if he doesn't win the Europa League. I'm sorry, you failed to do your job. And ultimately, I think the problem with Arsenal, as it were right now, is that you're getting in these inexperienced, I won't say that Emery, if you're going to justify sacking Unai Emery, granted he lost the dressing room for far less, and then you don't do the same with Arteta, I mean, what example are you setting? I think the problem is that who do you bring in to replace him? Who wants to be the Arsenal manager at this point? So even if he probably justifiably needs to go, I think you're kind of stuck between a rock and the hard place, in the sense that who is going to want to come in here knowing that Stan Kroenke isn't going to give you a pot to piss in, and then you have all of this pressure to get Arsenal back where it deservedly belongs, which is in the top 4. And I don't think anyone wants the job. That's why you don't have experienced managers like, Ancelotti or Nagelsmann, when we were looking at him, that want to come to a club like Arsenal because they don't think they're going to be given the tools to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. That I think at this point we have to double down on Arteta, as much as,
unfortunately.
Yeah, we have no choice. We have no choice but to double down on Arteta and try to make it work, because not only, nobody is going to want to, I'm not going to say nobody, but it's going to be difficult for us to attract the right type of manager after Arteta with a mismatch of Arsene Wenger players, Unai Emery players, Arteta players, right. No funds, no Europe, no nothing, so yep. I think we do have to double down on Arteta, but how I truly feel about it is that I don't think he should be sacked. But I also don't think about it like that, because I know he will not. If we wanted to sack him, we should have done it in the around Christmas. We can't do it now. And even if we try to do it in the summer, like you said, it's going to be really difficult to find a manager that's going to want to deal with this project. Are the Kroenkes going to be able to? So let me just back up a little bit. Mike from the Gooners Pod explained to me on a podcast that the financial statements that came out a couple of days ago are not good. And essentially,
he had a podcast on it with Elliot from Arsenal Vision.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it's just kind of like, okay, when you look at it, those were losses based on being Europa League finalists and in the top 5. So that doesn't even account for us coming in 8th place and going out of the Europa League in the round of 32 last season. So it's not good. And in terms of like a squad perspective, people are saying, well, it might be good to be outside of Europe. We'll be able to recruit in places that we want to be able to recruit, that kind of thing. Like, yeah, for a Leicester or a West Ham or a team like that, that might be okay. But for a club that runs itself like an elite Champions League level team, we can't afford to be outside of European competition. Financially, it's a really big problem. The only way that we can survive outside of Europe, let's say we finish in 10th place and we get knocked out from Olympiacos. The only way we survive that is if the Kroenkes disband their self-sustaining model, stick their hand in their pocket, and invest to a level that's going to get us past Everton, past West Ham, past Aston Villa, past Leeds, past Chelsea, past Spurs, past Man United. That is a lot.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
If you look at it purely from an investment, Stan Kroenke took on a massive amount of debt to purchase Arsenal outright about a year or so before the pandemic-induced recession. So if you look at it, Arsenal as like a stock, he bought at the high, and that's continued to lose value. He's not done anything to hedge his position. So he needs to hedge his position and now start putting some of his own money into this team, or his investment is just going to continue to decline. So it's either, do you want to invest more money in an asset that's losing value, or do you maybe want to sell it to the the Nigerian? Was he Nigerian?
Yeah.
The billionaire, the energy, was he energy or in mining or something?
Yeah.
Let him buy the team. Yeah, I would love that. And I also think that as Arsenal has always been a very big team in Africa because of that black contingent of players, right? Like it is one of those teams that has always been diverse in terms of its supporters and in terms of its players on the pitch, and has kind of preceded a lot of other British clubs in that regard. Arsenal is huge in Africa, also probably because of the French-speaking contingent of players as well. I think has an effect on that. So I would love to see an owner from Africa. I think it would be good for the support, and I think it would be good for the league, and for the club. So that's my hope. My hope is that Stan is like, I don't want to put any more money into this club because I'm bleeding. So let's sell it to this guy who loves the club, who will make the sport grow even more in a part of the world that has a huge appetite for football and exports an amazing amount of talent. That's my feeling. No, I mean, what is it? Visit Rwanda, like all of our sponsorships, like it just makes sense for the brand, I think, to move in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just at the point now where I'm like, okay, well, I personally don't think KFC is anywhere near selling the club. I don't think so. So for us, it's just about they have to reach into their pocket and invest substantially. Like what I'm saying is we're not going to be able to just improve by one player this summer and maybe sell one or two. Like in order for us to close the gap, and based on where we are, we can see where the gap is. I think in the best of times, we're probably 4 players away, but with the culture, all that kind of stuff that's ingrained, it's an even bigger project. And I'm just not sure that if they don't invest enough and Arteta continues on with the same players, that we're not going to be sitting here in December sacking the manager. We're just in a really sticky situation. And Pro 1989 says, like, this is a really good comment, is that it's going to get worse before it gets better. The numbers, like I said, those
elites.
I mean, and that's
what, the worst case scenario. You get relegated, and then the manager either the KSE decides to sell when we're a championship club. That's my concern. I would love Dangote, regardless of his links to nefarious people. What billionaire isn't linked to nefarious people? They're a billionaire. They're literally a Bond villain. I mean, what do you want from them? I would rather have a Bond villain as my owner than Stan Kroenke. You think the Waltons are innocent? Come on.
Exactly. We're just in that weird position. I'm just not sure, if they're going to improve this squad enough realistically, because you have to remember that not only is the gap really big right now, but like if West Ham and Everton, they qualify for Europe, and we have teams like Leeds and Aston Villa, Leicester, who have ownership that are going to invest, they're going to get better again. So not only do we have to close the gap from just this season, we have to close the gap from however much better they become. So that's a really, really, really big gap.
Leicester has extensive investment from that Thai billionaire. I know he perished, may he rest in peace, in that horrible helicopter crash, but his estate still, his company and his family still run Leicester. I mean, people think of Leicester as like this little, podunk club that has just made the right signings. And don't get me wrong, they've made some excellent signings, but they're not innocent in this rush to spend big money. They're backed by a Thai billionaire family, so that is aggressively investing in that brand. It's just, the comments are about American owners are killing our clubs. I don't think all American owners are alike. I think, I mean, though the Glazers, right? But some of the money in United, some of the money in Liverpool. Yes, a lot of it is that American business culture of just wanting to see it as a sort of like performance investment. But I don't think that anyone can say that this Stan Kroenke situation is perfectly analogous with another American owner. And I don't think that that's true necessarily.
It's not about it's not about American ownership.
Thing.
It's a Kroenke thing for sure.
It's a Kroenke thing, stingy.
Yeah. So you guys, we're at the point in the show where I'd like to get your guys' questions in for, if they're for me or for MK, either one, get your comments and questions in, make sure it's obvious that it's a question so that I don't skip you. But before we get to the comment section, I do have some announcements about the show. So if you haven't noticed, I've been actually creating more shows. I now do match previews a couple days before our matches, and I'm also doing instant reactions immediately following the game. Those are actually going to be on my own channel, She Knows Arsenal. The post-match shows will remain on VG Media, but they'll also be streamed to my personal channel as well. So if you guys go to the description box before you leave, you'll see there's a link to subscribe to the She Knows Arsenal channel. Do that so you don't miss any of the shows. My next match preview is going to be tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time, and I'm going to be previewing the press conference and team news and everything before we play Olympiacos on Thursday. And I also want to announce that all of my shows are now going to be on audio platforms. So they'll be on Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So again, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another show. And my show schedules are always going to be pinned on the She Knows Arsenal Twitter page. So that's it for announcements. Let's see. Are there any questions? You guys, where are the questions? Where are the questions, you guys? I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in you guys. Now I have to scroll all the way up and find other questions. You guys, you do this to me every single time. I say, get your questions in, and there's no questions.
The kitty a gooner.
Here we go.
Oh, of course she is.
Here's one. Okay, so Robsky asks, how does Arsenal get out of this mess? So this is kind of like one of those open-ended questions, one of those questions on the SATs where it's not like the multiple choice. It's like
an essay question.
Yeah, it's an essay question that I'm going to fail. But ultimately, for me, I think it's just what we had just kind of spoken about is KSE has to start reaching into their pocket and investing in this squad to get us where we need. It's going to take money, and not just. I'm not saying. And here's the deal. Less Pepes, more Tierney's. That's pretty much it. That $25 million range is the right range in terms of investing for a player that's going to improve the squad. We don't need to shackle ourselves to big wages. Yeah, and move players on and move on. I think
when they have that ceiling,
I think Arteta is trying to play the right way. That's the thing about Arteta is I think he's trying to play the right way. I just don't think maybe he has the players that he necessarily needs. Again, I still have questions about whether if he gets better players, he'll continue to play the Xhakas and all that. But ultimately, we have to give him the tools for him to succeed because like MK and I had already kind of said, there's not a lot of managers that are going to come into this mess, and change it. So MK, do you want to add anything to that? Any ideas about how we get out of this?
I think Arsenal has always been one of the top developing clubs in Europe. I think we've always had one of the best academies, along with maybe Ajax and a few others that have just consistently turned out top shelf players. I think we need to get Saka on an even more long-term deal and commit the future of the club to his name. I think that we need to, again, I agree with more signings like Tierney, fewer like Pepe. We have to be, to the credit to the Kroenkes in this sense, like we have at least been spending more in recent windows. The problem is that they haven't staffed the right people to oversee the right expenditures. So I also think you need a better, decision-making tier within Arsenal Football Club. I think there's not a lot. You have people like Gazidis that just killed us, we're still dealing with that now. And so I think it's the player development, the money, yes, but I think it's really going to come down to money more than anything else, because that's the reality of football. And even for that 25 million, you're going to start seeing bigger and bigger bets on even players of Tierney's caliber, because even the Championship is now providing talent to the Premier League. There's no stone that's not being turned over by clubs with massive pockets.
For sure.
And you have to compete for those players.
Exactly. So Kayville asks, question to you, is your cat a gooner? And if so, does he or she hate VAR?
Yes. She's a gooner, but she won't let me put anything Arsenal related on her. She doesn't even like me brushing her. So she's very particular. She has a big attitude. So yes, I wish I could get those like little, pictures with people with their Arsenal pets, but she's not going to participate in that. So no, she watches the matches with me.
Super cute. My dog does too. Let's see. Okay, so Static asks, if Martinelli continues not to play, should Arsenal sell him? I'll let you.
No, because you need to play him. Not to play, no, there needs to be a consistent pressure, and the press that covers Arsenal need to ask Arteta what is going on with this player. We need communication. The fan base is tired of seeing Willian take away minutes from him. He is a phenomenal talent. We have seen what he can do. We understand that he's coming back from a severe injury, but at the same time, there just needs to be communication about his status. If Arteta doesn't rate him, I think that's ludicrous. At what point do you sell him? I mean, I don't think you would get the amount that he's probably worth at this point in time. So I think you need to kind of commit more years to him. If you want to have the conversation about a sale years down the road, if it's like a Coutinho situation, because I think that it can be. I think you're talking about a player that could sell for over £100 million, but not
he has
right
to
now.
play.
So he has to play. Otherwise, he has no value.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you. I don't think I think if we sold him now, we'd be making a huge mistake. We definitely, with COVID and the pandemic, we wouldn't be getting anywhere near what he's worth. And he needs to get to the point where it's no longer about potential. It's about reality with him. We all know that he has everything possible to become, to me, he's the perfect combination of Suarez and Alexis Sanchez. He's that type of player. Chaos merchant, goal scorer, leader.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of player that he is. So, I think he just needs to be given some playing time. And at this point, it's inconclusive what Arteta's plans are for Martinelli. If we bring in another striker, that will inevitably push him further down the pecking order. Arteta clearly sees him as a center forward, and he's starting to he let him play in that position recently. So everything is kind of inconclusive at this point. But I think if we go into the end of the season and not really see Martinelli, the pressure, the questions are going to continue to mount on that particular topic.
Yeah, we just want communication. Just give us some communication. I would love to see more journalists press him and push back on him for this, because that's all we want. We just want we understand that a manager is privy to more information than we are, but that's why he has to communicate it to the press, and so that there aren't rumors like this.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Okay, Crow 1989 asks, realistic league finish prediction. So for me, the Burnley match completely, it's solidified for me that we will finish in 10th place. I don't think that we are
100% agree.
Yeah, I don't think we're going any further than that 10th, and the underlying metrics and the statistics. I think even that crab, he does the statistics with Elliot on the Arsenal Vision podcast, and he says that most of the underlying metrics put us somewhere around 10th, and that's where we are. We're going to finish mid-table. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we don't deserve to finish anywhere above that. Nope. As good as the team could be, we have not taken care of business like the other teams. So 10th
You can't drop points to Burnley and expect to finish anywhere above 10. Sorry. Yeah. And 10th is positive considering where we've been this season. So people shouldn't.
That's
could be a lot worse.
Very, very true. Let's see. Here's another question. I think I'd like to get your take on this. Do you think we can still win the Europa League?
You know what? Yes, I do. I do. I think that Arsenal, and people have said it, Sophie says it often on Highbury Squad, we are a cup team. If we prioritize ourselves right, I think that on our best day, we can do it. We had a far less talented squad reach the Europa League final. And I don't want to talk about that final, but we went there. And so do I think we can win it? Yes. Do I think we will win it? That's another question. I think it's a tall order. I think it's a lot to rest your season in hopes of Europe on. But there's no question that we have to win it. And I think we do have the talent on our good day to do it.
Yeah, I just think, how do I feel? It's kind of like, yes, we can. We do have the type of squad that can beat, anybody that's left in this competition. I understand that United and Milan are still there. One of them is going to knock each other out. I think the next round, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of been said that we're matched up with the winner of either Granada or Molde in the next round. If we get past Olympiacos, we should get past Olympiacos. If we have to play against either Molde or Granada, I fancy us against one of those teams as well. And that puts us in the quarterfinals, I believe. So
exactly.
I think, yes, but ultimately there are other teams that really, really need this as well. I look at somebody like Spurs who they're not only desperate to get into the Champions League, which I feel like they'll just about miss out on it in the league, but they need a trophy. And that's why they've hired Jose Mourinho, and he is a master at getting to the final and taking care of business. So a Spurs-Arsenal final is not something that I'd like to see. No. But if we got anybody else in that final, barring Spurs, I think we'd be okay. I think on the day we could beat Manchester United. I don't think they're good in cup competitions. No. And so I'm really hoping that we can push forward and maybe at least get to the final, because again, even getting to further rounds gets us more money, which is important to us moving forward. But just for optics as well, getting past the round of 32, the round of 16 is better for Arteta, so yeah, we can, but will we? Inconclusive.
I think we'll make the quarterfinals, if not the semifinals. That's kind of realistically, I think that's realistic. I don't think that that's even a pipe dream. I think it's realistic to achieve that. Anything beyond that, that's the question.
100%. All right, let's do a couple more, you guys. RBK asks, what do you think about our inability to go for the jugular when we go a goal up? Is our lack of relentlessness related to casualness that permeates our mentality? There's never sustained pressure.
Well, it's down to the way Arteta likes to play his football. He's a possession-based football, strategy that is more about, passing it around and just keeping it away from the opposition. And yeah, it's conservative to a degree. I agree, but I don't also, it's the manager on the sidelines that's going to tell them to push up and to put more pressure. And I think that he worries maybe about counterattacks, because the reality is that our defense isn't good enough to just be constantly pressing up the pitch. So you really going to count on David Luiz or even Hector Bellerin when he pushes all the way up to get back? We don't have the talent for that kind of football. So I think we're kind of beholden to the reality that we do have to play a bit more conservatively. Would I like us to score more? Would I like us to keep that pressure up? Yes, of course. But I think you have to look at the reality that look at our defense. I think we would give up, you're basically going to turn into a Leeds, where you're scoring a lot, but you're giving up even more.
I mean, if you think about the fact that the reality is we have improved defensively, but that's because we haven't opened ourselves up as much as other teams do. Because I don't think Arteta is confident in our finishing ability, our killer instinct. And I think ultimately the way he sets the team up almost puts us at a disadvantage anyway. You can tell that he's really afraid, like MK said, of the counterattack. So again, we've improved defensively, but it's more based on the fact that we don't open up. And lately we've been opening up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we're getting scored on a little bit more, but risk versus reward. For me, with the type of attacking talent that we have, I feel like we should be able to attack a little bit more. But if you're missing sitters and, you're making those individual errors, I mean, it's all for naught anyway. So it's a mentality issue. It's the way that Arteta is very risk adverse. That's how he's been since the moment he got here. He's very risk adverse. And, I think that kind of kills our opportunities to kind of just smash the team into the ground. I think the only time that I've really seen us with that killer instinct is really against Leeds and Leicester. And then we went right out there against Burnley and looked nothing like that. So super inconsistent. I don't really know. That's what I think though. Yeah. Let's see. This is a really good question by Don Giovanni. Thank you so much for this question, because I've been actually thinking about this as well. Why haven't we seen Ceballos and Partey in midfield? To me, Ceballos is an equal passer to Xhaka, but is also a good defender, more mobile, and can play under pressure, dribble, good technical level, and good stats.
Yeah, I've wondered that as well. I mean, Xhaka is definitely a better player when Partey is on the pitch, but then he still is prone to the errors that he made when Partey was on the pitch. So, yeah, it's kind of a question mark for me as well. And it's another where the manager is just kind of like causing maybe people to doubt his decision making a bit, because there is no reason. I mean, why is El Neni picked sometimes over Ceballos in that regard? I agree that Ceballos made that terrible mistake defensively that it contributed to that goal for Benfica, but just what do you have to lose to try? Just see how it works. And why do you keep picking Xhaka and Willian? And just, I think it's politics. I really do. There's nothing else that, to me, logically explains it.
I mean, that's pretty much what we've been talking about this entire time, is Arteta shoots himself in the foot by choosing these players over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Ceballos, to me, just like Don Giovanni said, is no less of a player than Granit Xhaka. He's more technically gifted than Granit Xhaka is. He has more than 1 foot. He is more mobile, and he does have a killer pass on him. Besides the pass the obvious line splitting pass and the pass out to Tierney, Xhaka really doesn't have that much of a passing range that is better than Dani Ceballos. Danny has also made. Yeah, they're pretty similar. I think their pluses and minuses kind of cancel each other out, but if you give Dani Ceballos the ball, in the 6-yard box, and you want him to be able to make a quick decision and get the ball out to David Luiz, I would I think they're both just kind of, but I think it comes down to Arteta liking Xhaka. And
it does. And
it's just, that's just what it is. Xhaka will play with Thomas Partey, and Ceballos is just kind of, the third, fourth choice. I don't know if it's right or not, but I don't think we'll ever see it. Just like how we're not really seeing Martinelli. That's just kind of what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, managers have their favorites, and that's always going to factor into any team sport. And unfortunately, it's costing us at the moment. And I just don't understand this persistent selection of Xhaka. I again don't want to hate on him too much, but Ceballos is more likely to move it forward. You look at the same players that just laterally pass or pass back. It's Bellerin, it's Xhaka, it's these Wenger players that are just too conservative for what we need right now. Partey is, if you had Partey and Ceballos, they'd be moving the ball forward a lot more. You wouldn't have Leno passing it around in the 6-yard box.
But see, the issue with that is that they're going to lose the ball more, and that's what Arteta doesn't want. He tells El Neni and Xhaka to pass the ball backward because, again, he's risk adverse. That's how he is. You may get a more exciting game from Ceballos and Thomas Partey, and we're moving that ball forward, but ultimately he wants to see us retain the ball, and that's why we play backwards. I mean, If that's the way he wants to play, then that's the way he wants to play. But to be honest, like, it has to work out for him. You know, that's kind of where I am
it's not
with Arteta. You know, at some point it needs to all kind of come together, because 10th place and not winning the Europa League is not a good look. And again, if they don't invest, we're finished. You know. All right, you guys. This was a wonderful show. MK, thank you so much for being here. Can you let everybody know where they can find you on the internets and all those types of things?
So I run the Arsenal Los Angeles Twitter account, and I when it's not on at 4 a.m., I will be live tweeting the games at Arsenal_LA. My personal account is less Arsenal focused, but you can find me at MK Lietman, just as you see on the screen with no spaces.
You will find MK on Twitter singing Alanis. Is that what I saw the other day?
Yeah, my personal account. Though I delete them sometimes. I'm just kind of like bored in lockdown. You know, it's just kind of random.
I loved it. Next time you put one up, I'll put one up too.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and when we get out of here, we'll go karaoke. That's what you like to do. Yeah, for sure. All right, you guys, that's the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here again. The next show is the match preview for Olympiacos. Score predictions, lineup predictions, team news, and the press conference reaction, all of those types of things. So look forward to that. Subscribe to the channel, and you can always follow me at It's Just Eno. I'm also going to be updating the She Knows Arsenal Twitter page a lot more. So make sure you're following that too. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.